Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. How is everybody? I hope we're having a good, for those of you where it is Friday evening or sometime Friday. I hope you're having a good Friday. A good Friday. I didn't even do that on purpose. Um, anyway, thanks everybody for being here. Glad you could make it. As usual, I will be responding to questions submitted by my wonderful, generous Patreon patrons first and foremost. And when I get through the patron questions, then I will turn my full attention to the live chat. So if you are with me live in the live chat and you are planning on asking a question or suggesting something that you want me to talk about, or especially if you're planning on being generous and donating a super chat or something like that, please, please, please hold off until I get through the patron questions, and then I can devote my full attention uh, to the live chat because I want to give you my full attention. So let's go to the patron questions, and the first patron question is from there we go is from Eric Byer, who says, now that the weather is getting nicer, have you and Stuffy been climbing more trees? If so, I wonder if you might share some of your meditations from the experience. Well, Stuffy, as was implied by the little short that we did a few months ago, where Stuffy and I climbed a tree. Stuffy is not much of a tree climber. I mean, he'll climb with me if I invite him, but it's not really his thing. He's more of a ground based dog than he's in Jackson Galaxy parlance. He's more of a bush dweller, not a tree dweller. I don't know if that works for dogs as well as cats, but that's Stuffy. He's more happy on the ground. But yes, I have been climbing trees more often. I am hoping that I'll be able to get out and climb one tomorrow. I don't. I think the weather's supposed to be nice. It was really super windy here today, but it's not supposed to be as windy tomorrow. So I'm hoping to get out and climb a tree tomorrow. And as far as meditations, I mean, nothing specific. I mean, it's just I do really. It's a shame that tree climbing is associated as like a thing that children do, because I mean it's great. Like I climbed trees all the time when I was a child. Climbing trees as a kid is wonderful. It was a great part of my childhood. But there's no reason why, as long as you are physically able to do it and do it safely, there's no reason why you have to stop climbing trees just because you become an adult. It's a really really wonderful activity. I mean it's good exercise. You get outside, you get out in nature, and there's something really special about looking at the world from the top of a tree. I mean, because most trees, especially most trees around here in my area, don't grow like too super tall. The trees I usually climb are pine trees that top out at around 100 feet tall. So it's not like you're not that high. You're pretty high, but you're not like it's not like a dizzying height or anything. And because you're on top of the tree and the tree is directly beneath you, like you can't really look straight down and see the ground straight beneath you. You're sort of looking out over everything. And it's a really wonderful perspective. And you're there, it's a tree, it's a living thing, you're sort of holding on to it and looking out across, in my case, out across Antietam battlefield, but out across wherever you happen to be, and seeing things from a perspective that you don't really get to see anywhere else, at least not anywhere that you can get to with such ease. And it's nice, you know. It's just a nice um, perspective to have. And I don't really have any specific meditations to share about it, but it's a wonderful point of view to take of the world. And I wish that more people of all ages, I wish that more people who were able to do it would take advantage of it and would do it, um, because it's a lot of fun. So, next question is from General Contact Unit Problem Child, who says, after the last midterm, some people were saying the Dems taking the House was good, because it meant if anything happened to Trump and Pence, Pelosi would become president. There was a similar situation in the 1980s. If Reagan and Bush were both killed, Democratic Speaker Tip O'Neill would have become president. Tip O'Neill entered politics in the New Deal era and was a strong supporter of stuff like universal health care and a guaranteed jobs program. In the 1980s, that kind of politics was genuinely unpopular. The US had been duped into believing in trickle down, and the GOP were actually capable of winning fairly. Suppose Reagan and Bush were both killed in a freak accident and Tip O'Neill had taken over. Would it have been right for him to try and govern as a progressive president when he'd have no Democratic mandate to do so? We both think progressive policies are good, but would you want an unelected president trying to implement them in a time when most people don't even want them? Yes, absolutely. Yes, of course. Because here's the thing. If Tip O'Neill or Nancy Pelosi or some other Democrat or progressive politician finds their way into the presidency, even though they were not elected to the presidency because of assassination or some other tragedy that causes them to ascend through the line of succession, they're still in the office legally. They're still in the office in accordance with the Constitution. Like the Constitution was written as it was to allow for those kinds of situations. And even though it's not explicitly spelled out like this in the Constitution, common practice for the entirety of the history of the government that was outlined by the Constitution tells us that when someone succeeds to the presidency as a result of a death or something like, or an impeachment or something like that, or a resignation, that they become fully the president. They're not the acting president. They're not the president, but they're just kind of a caretaker until there's an election. Like, they are fully the president with all of the powers and privileges and responsibilities of that office. So if something like that were to have happened in the 80s, if Reagan and Bush had both been killed and Tip O'Neill, as the Speaker of the House, had become the president, he would have been the president legally, constitutionally. And if he wanted to govern according to New Deal politics, according to his progressive politics, I think he absolutely should have done that, just as I would have said the same thing about Nancy Pelosi, just as I would have said the same thing about anyone who ascended to the office. And if people didn't like it, the point is, well, if they weren't elected president, and what if the people didn't want those kinds of policies? Well, then the people can make their voices heard during the next election. But she or he, in the case of Tip O'Neill, would be the rightful president, and they would have the right, as the rightful president, to govern however they saw fit within the boundaries of the Constitution and the law. And, that's what I think they should do. And I especially think that if they happen to be progressive. Absolutely, I would support that. I think it would be foolish and self-defeating not to support that. Next patron question is from Mike Moody Garcia, who says, "Hey, Steve, wondering if you like any Joss Whedon shows or movies, and are you finding it difficult to revisit his stuff or watch it for the first time, considering the recent allegations about his abusive power on set and his problematic treatment of different women he's worked with? Thanks." Well, Dana and I are working our way through Firefly on our Trek Reluctantly show. Every other week, we watch an episode of Firefly, and we just watched Firefly this week. This past Wednesday, we watched an episode of that, and we're almost done. We're almost through the show because it only ran for one season, and we're also going to watch the movie Serenity, which came out a few years after the end of the series. So, and I had never seen any of it. Like, I'd never watched Firefly before. So, and yeah, the most recent allegations, the Ray Fisher, actually, I think the Ray Fisher stuff was already kind of out there, but it was given a lot more attention since we started our show. Like, the Ray Fisher spoke out more explicitly between when we started our show back in November, I think, or October, November is when we started Trek Reluctantly. And now, and of course, then just a few months ago, Charisma Carpenter spoke out and spoke in greater detail than she had previously about her experience and how Whedon mistreated her, and other people who had worked on the shows backed her up. And so, yeah, I mean, it has crossed my mind, and Dana and I have talked about it, and it's a bummer, and it sucks. And I know that there are people who enjoy our show, who enjoy watching shows along with Dana and I on Trek Reluctantly, who are intentionally skipping the Firefly weeks because they don't want to watch a Joss Whedon show. And I completely support that. Like, I think that is a reasonable choice to make in light of the allegations, in light of how he has mistreated people and abused people. I think it's perfectly legitimate to say, I'm not watching that asshole's show. I don't care if it is a 20-year-old show. It doesn't matter. I'm not watching it. I think that's fine. And we sort of decided amongst ourselves that we were going to finish watching Firefly because we had already started. I think we were maybe a third of the way through by the when Charisma Carpenter spoke out this most recent time, and we just sort of decided, let's just finish it. Let's just get through it. So that's what we're going to do. But I don't blame anybody for not wanting to watch Firefly along with us. Just like I don't blame anybody for not wanting to watch any Joss Whedon stuff from now on. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. And yeah, I mean, it crosses my mind. It bothers me. I have not loved Firefly so far. I have liked it a lot, and there have been certain episodes that I have really enjoyed. But I am not going to wind up being like a Firefly super fan like a lot of people. Like, I don't really get what is so super special about the show. Like, I don't like it enough to relate to like the cultish fan base that it has attracted. Like, I'm not ever going to be a brown coat. I just don't like it that much. I think it's fine. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel are two of my favorite shows ever. And Angel especially, I think, is at its best is a brilliant show. Is one of the best shows ever on television. And I haven't gone back and watched any episodes of Angel since this most recent reporting on Joss Whedon and his abuses and his sort of general shittiness have come out. And I expect that when I do go back and watch an episode of Angel at some point, that it'll probably be a weird experience. Just like it was a weird experience for me the first time I watched Superman Returns after the allegations about Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey were out there and became impossible to ignore. And I mean, I put off watching Superman Returns, which is my favorite superhero movie. I put off watching that for years especially after the Kevin Spacey stuff broke. I just did not want to watch it in fear that the experience would be ruined for me, that I wouldn't be able to enjoy it because of that. And I was able to watch it and enjoy it and not have that be too big of a problem. But there are people who can't do that or choose not to do that, and that's fine too. So yeah, I mean, that sort of stuff does. I can usually, if it's something that I have a pre-existing relationship with, if it's something that I love predating the revelations or the accusations, I can usually compartmentalize and I can still enjoy it, even though I know about the horrible behavior of people involved. I'm usually pretty good about that kind of compartmentalization. But some people choose not to do that or aren't able to do that, and that's completely fine. But yeah, to answer your question for the third or fourth time as I ramble on here, it does cross my mind. It does cross my mind. Next patron question is from Danny K, who says, "Hi, Steve. I've been reading a lot about Abraham Lincoln as of late and was surprised to learn that he had some close associations with socialism in the mid-19th century, most notably his associations with former Whig Party representative Horace Greeley and American socialist Charles A. Dana and of the New York Tribune. Mr. Dana hired Karl Marx as the British correspondent for the paper, and he would ultimately write almost 500 articles for it. Lincoln was reportedly an avid reader of the Tribune and wound up exchanging correspondence with Marx late in his life. It's interesting to me that the early Republican Party seemed to have far more in common with socialism than the current day Democrats they routinely accuse of trying to destroy America. Do you suppose that had Lincoln not been assassinated, his continued leadership might have changed the fortunes of the then burgeoning American socialist movement? Perhaps. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other. I am an admirer of Lincoln, but I am by no means a Lincoln historian. So I am not suited to answer that question with any degree of of expertise. Um, but it's possible. I mean, there are a great many things that would have probably been different had Lincoln not been assassinated. I generally think about it in terms of how much better Reconstruction would have gone, how much better the post Civil War period would have gone with Lincoln still in the presidency. But would the socialist movement have been better off with? I mean, I assume that it would have been if Lincoln was uh, friendly with the movement and was open minded about their philosophy and their goals. I assume that they would have had an easier time if with a friend in the White House, but I don't know if there would have been any like major specific benefit. But yeah, so I can't really answer the question, but it is an interesting question, and it's an interesting thought experiment to think about how America would have been different had the Lincoln assassination not taken place. And one of those areas that could have been different that I don't really hear talked about very much is the socialist movement. Um, and yeah, but as I say, I don't know one way or the other enough to make any sort of you know retroactive prediction, I guess, as to how it would have gone. But it's an interesting question, and I would assume that it would have been a little better for early socialists if they would have had a friend in the White House. But who knows? Andrew Michael says America is too attached to guns. You've got me there. You've got me right there. Like, I don't know what else you're going to say, but you've got me there. It's easy for some nervous coward to wear a piece of European metal on their hip. It makes them feel emboldened to force their opinions on people. It's worse when it's a cop, as the system they're part of grants them freedom to use those weapons. Take George Floyd's murder. Onlookers begged the cops to get off him and call help, but nobody was prepared to intervene because so many times a person confronting a cop runs the risk of being shot. My girlfriend's dad was an officer, and I chatted with him about the extra training he had to get firearm certified. He asked how much extra training U.S. cops go through to qualify for a sidearm, and he was appalled to learn standard U.S. training is not only shorter than the U.K., but they're also just given a weapon. You have intolerant juvenile bigots let loose on the streets with the ability to kill indiscriminately. You want police reform? Take away their guns first and tighten your gun control while you're at it. End rant. Boy, I could not have said it any better myself. I agree with you 100%. I talked about this just a little bit in my video I did last week about police reform, where I talked about possibly disarming police as a part of that. And I'm the next Where Do We Go From Here video, which will go up not next week, but probably the week after next, will be about gun control. And disarming the police will be a part of that too, because I think that is an important part of both of those issues. I think it's a very important part of police reform, and it's also a very important part of reforming firearm regulations and bringing down the level of gun violence, generally speaking, in the United States. I do believe we should disarm police officers. I do believe that cops carrying firearms should be only in special circumstances, that just an officer on patrol or an officer on traffic duty or an officer called to the scene of what seems to be a nonviolent situation should not have a weapon on their hip. They should not be walking around carrying a deadly weapon. I do not see how that helps any situation unless it is a specific situation where they know that they are going to confront a person who is also armed, or it is a dangerous situation where there is an active threat to other people's lives, and they may need to act, take the ultimate action and shoot somebody and possibly take somebody's life. Unless it is known to be specifically that kind of situation, I don't see how it ever helps to introduce a gun into a situation where there wasn't a gun before. So I am a big proponent of disarming cops. And I'm also a big proponent of disarming everybody else. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. Disarming people should be a major plank in police reform and in gun control. And they should happen side by side, you know. And if you have to do one before the other, then yeah, disarm the cops before you disarm the civilian population, but they should both be happening at the same time because they both absolutely need to happen. We need to reduce the number of guns, period, in the general population of the United States. And whether that means federally funded rolling buyback programs, whether that means banning the manufacture of certain types of guns, banning the sales of certain types of guns, reforming laws so that gun manufacturers can be sued by victims of gun violence, whatever you need to do to bring down the level of gun ownership in this country, I am 100% in favor of. Anything that you think is practical and will work, I am willing to listen. And I think part of that needs to be disarming cops. Absolutely. 100% with you on that. Isaiah Taylor says, so Steve, what is your style of clothing? For me, I never understood the obsession with meticulous details of clothing. For me, some of the clothing I see at Hollywood events like the Grammys, I'm like, why? My style of clothing is a graphic t-shirt featuring a music or artist like Bjork or Billie Eilish, a NASA retro shirt or some 90s vintage art theme. My pants are 34 by 32 jeans, either ripped or not, and some Converse shoes, preferably red or blue, and maybe a studded belt like that of an emo or scene kid to hold up my pants. For dress clothing, a sweet jacket, an undershirt, some slacks, and business shoes. I don't understand the need to buy a suit for $600 when I can get the same attire from Goodwill for around less than $45. Just like I don't understand Jay Leno and other celebrities' obsessions with cars, since they all look the same to me. Maybe my straightforwardness and inability to distinguish the differences of material wealth has clouded what cool is. I don't know. What is my style? T-shirt and jeans is my style. You want to see my style? I happen to be wearing a graphic shirt now. I'm wearing one of my Superman shirts. It's not always a graphic shirt. Sometimes it's just like a plain black T-shirt or a plain blue or whatever T-shirt. And of course a baseball cap. But yeah, T-shirt and jeans. See? T-shirt and jeans. See? And a belt. Just a plain black belt. And by the way, we have the same waistline, buddy. You're a 34. I'm a 34. I've been a 34 for like 20 years. I used to be a 32, and I plumped up by 2 inches in my early 20s, and I've stayed a 34 ever since. Boom! What do you think of that? It's nothing to be proud of, but for some reason I'm proud of it. But yeah, my fashion is I don't really put that much thought into it. If it's warm enough, I wear a t-shirt. If it's too cold for just a t-shirt, I put on like a Henley or a long sleeve tee over top of it. Put on a pair of jeans. I'm dressed. You know, I probably put even less thought into my fashion than you do. But yeah, so I don't really, you know, like super cash. I don't know. T-shirt and jeans is my style. Steven Sutton says, hi, Steve. More a serious question than I am comfortable asking, but it's needed. How do you rate your ability to argue and debate in person? You can script, craft, and film an argument. Can you do it off the cuff? I ask because of a recent bitter disappointment. I had my first post-lockdown reunion with a friend only to discover that a combination of alcohol, lockdown anxiety, and Jordan Peterson YouTube clips have helped him to become an asshole. He'd rant, meander, and use logical fallacies so quickly and so adeptly that I couldn't keep up. For example, he'd highlight some minor procedural error of the Derek Chauvin trial and conclude that America doesn't have a race problem. It got worse from there. In person, I had no idea how he did it. I knew he was full of shit, but I was powerless to point out how. Every obvious thing to say just wasn't in my brain the moment I needed it. I left early, and I left depressed. Do you experience this? Have you overcome it even to a degree? It really depends on the subject. There are certain subjects of debate that I am comfortable arguing with people in person about, and that I can do, you know, with a lot of confidence and a lot of efficiency, and you know, and I can at least hold my own and maybe, you know, take over and dominate. But it really depends on the subject. If it's a political subject that I'm passionate about and that I know a lot about, yeah, absolutely, I can argue in person all night long, and never take a step back. If I'm confident that I'm right and I have the facts and the arguments to back up my position, I can, I can debate until one of us gets tired, right? I can absolutely. I have full confidence in myself to do that. And but if it's something that I'm not that educated on, or that I don't care that much about, or if it is an or if it's an argument with someone who I honestly don't think is worth arguing with, like if someone wants to have a debate about whether or not racism is a thing in the United States, I'm probably not going to have that argument with them, at least not for more than a minute or two, because I just don't think it's worth having an argument about. To me, that's like arguing with someone over whether or not we landed on the moon. Like, that's just a dumb argument to have, because if you think we didn't land on the moon, you're a dumbass. And if you think that there isn't racism in America, if you think that racism is no longer a problem, or that Derek Chauvin shouldn't have been convicted, or that there was something even remotely justifiable about the killing of George Floyd, then you're a dumbass. And why do I want to waste time in my life? Why do I want to waste heartbeats? You only get so many heartbeats, okay? And nobody knows how many heartbeats you get. And why do I want to waste heartbeats arguing with some clueless, ignorant dipshit about something that should not be a controversial thing? So it depends on what kind of mood I'm in. It depends on who I'm arguing with. It depends on what the subject is. But if the stars align, and if it's something that I care about, and it's an argument I think is worth having with this person at this time, and it's something that I'm confident in, yeah, I can argue in person. I don't, and the times when I have felt like I can't, or I don't want to, I just don't. I walk away. I have no problem whatsoever walking away from a debate. I am not so insecure. I am not so lacking in self-confidence in my adulthood, or in my, my manliness, whatever the hell that means, that I am unwilling to just turn my back and walk away from somebody if they are trying to start shit and I'm not into it. Like, so yeah, I haven't had that. I haven't had an experience like the one that you've had. I have had frustrating arguments with friends that ended sort of in kind of a stalemate, where I was trying to persuade them of something, and I just wasn't getting anywhere. I've had arguments go to the point where it was uncomfortable because things got a little too heated. And yeah, it's not a good feeling. I don't enjoy it. Um, but if it's an argument that I don't think is worth having, then I usually don't have it. And if it's one that I do think is worth having, I can fuck somebody up. Rhetorically speaking. it just it just really it really depends. Next question is from David Colby, who says, I've been rewatching one of my favorite TV shows, Burn Notice. You may ask, how can an anarchist's favorite TV show be a show about a CIA spy? And the answer is, Burn Notice is so ludicrous, so silly, so completely divorced from anything approximating sensible reality that I can enjoy it. But this got me thinking about shady spy agencies in the Star Treks, the Stars Treks. It seems really weird that we have tons of stories about Section 31 and basically nothing about Starfleet intelligence, a real service that actually seems like it'd be way, way, way more important, considering how it actually should exist, has oversight, proper funding, real goals that can be realistically accomplished. Why is that? Well, I think a lot of it is because Section 31, when Section 31 was introduced in Deep Space Nine, Star Trek had not really paid any attention to Starfleet intelligence at all. Like, it may have been mentioned here and there in some previous episodes, but I don't recall any like major stories that dealt with Starfleet intelligence, or acknowledged its existence. And by the same token, the creators of Star Trek also told us about these other intelligence agencies in, the Romulans and the Cardassians, etc. And they were like Section 31, like the Tal Shiar and the Obsidian Order are not. They're more analogous to Section 31 than they are to, the official Starfleet intelligence agency. Um, they're more sort of independent and under the radar, and they do what needs to be done, like Section 31 is supposed to be. So Section 31 fits more closely with the type of intelligence work that Star Trek writers have decided is the most interesting to dramatize. And Section 31 just has gotten the most attention. And the more above board Starfleet intelligence that presumably exists, and as you say, has a very important and more sort of officially sanctioned job, just doesn't get as much attention. And I kind of agree with you. I would, I would be interested in seeing some Starfleet intelligence stuff that wasn't Section 31, that was the more public facing agency, the more acknowledged agency by Starfleet and by the Federation government. I would be, interested to a point in that. Like, that's not, those kinds of stories aren't necessarily what I come to Star Trek for. Like, I'm not, just the idea, the premise of a Star Trek show about Starfleet intelligence, like, doesn't really grab me. Just like the premise of a Star Trek show about Section 31 doesn't really grab me. Like, I'll watch it because Michelle Yeoh is going to be in it, and because I'm interested to see where they go with her Giorgio character, and it's Star Trek, so I'll give it a shot. Like, I'll watch it, and hopefully it turns out to be good. But just the idea of a Section 31 show, like, that by itself doesn't really sell me anything because I'm not that interested. But I'll give it a shot, and hopefully it's a good show. And if it's a good show, I'll watch it. So, but yeah, I think that's probably why it hasn't gotten as much attention as Section 30. It's not as sexy as Section 31 because Section 31 is like the secret agency. They're the ones that can go outside the rules. They go out, they lay the principles of the Federation aside so that they can preserve the Federation. You know what I mean? But so, I think that's probably it. But yeah, I'd be interested potentially in seeing some stuff about Starfleet intelligence. Maybe. So, next question is from Alice Louise Watson. Where would you travel when we can after the pandemic? Money no option. I would end up in California to see Jason eventually. I think that's probably one place that I would want to go because I would love to meet Jason in person. And of course, yeah, but I mean, I would have to call ahead and be like, hey, is it cool if I come over? I wouldn't want to just show up at Jason's house and be like, hey, I'm here. Pandemic's over. I'm sleeping on the couch. Like, that wouldn't be. I wouldn't sleep on Jason's couch. I'd have like a hotel or something. That's not cool to just drop in somebody's house. And also, I don't want to stay at somebody's house. Like, I would rather, if I couldn't afford a hotel, I just wouldn't go. I don't like. That's one of the reasons why I don't think I would be a very good like world traveler, because like, at my income level, it would I could definitely travel a lot further and visit a lot more places if I was like the kind of person that could crash on somebody's couch. And I'm just not that kind of person. I'm just not like, oh, go to Europe and you can you do know people who live in, this country or that country. Would they be willing to let you crash on their couch? Yeah, probably. But I just don't want to crash on somebody's couch. I just, if I can't afford to get a hotel or something, I'm just not going to go. But yeah, if money was no object, I would eventually end up in the San Francisco area, and I would pay a call on my old pal Jason. Yeah, and that would be fun. And I wouldn't record any of it. We wouldn't make any videos or record any podcasts, and none of you would get to know anything about what we said or what we did. It would just be for us. We wouldn't mine it for content. Our lives are not to be mined for content. We'd probably make a video or something. I mean, that's just being dishonest. If I were to say, if I were to say, like, we're not going to make a video, like, that's just not it's just not honest. Of course, we'd probably make a video and a podcast together, but yeah. Agent Meister, how's it hanging, Shives Meister? I have been rewatching your non-scripted Star Trek videos, and I must say that I'm impressed with how you can recall the names of episodes from across the franchise and explain in a sentence or two what a given episode was about. Can you actually name each episode? Or, in failing that, could you give the gist of each episode if you were pressed to do so? Also, I'm rewatching all of Trek for the first time since I discovered your channel, and it's like viewing it with fresh eyes. This especially applies to DS9, and your channel has really helped me appreciate the work the writers put into the adventures of Sisko and company. With that sage-like insight in mind, would you have any objections to me referring to you as emissary from now on? I would call you old man, but I've been doing myself a disservice as you and I are the same age. Thanks for reading. Live long and prosper. The Meister has spoken. I could probably do that with TNG and Deep Space Nine, and probably with classic Trek as well. I could name every episode. I might need to be prompted a little. Like, I don't know if I like, I mean, I don't have them memorized. I couldn't just rattle off episode titles in order. But if somebody said, oh, you remember that episode with, such and such and such and such, like I could probably come up with the title pretty quick. Or vice versa. If somebody threw out a title, I could, tell you what the episode was about. I'm pretty confident I could do that with TNG and TOS and Deep Space Nine. I could probably do it with Voyager to an extent, but not as completely as with those other ones. And I could probably do it a little bit with Enterprise, but not nearly as much because I think Enterprise is the show that I have watched the least. I've seen every episode, but a lot of the episodes I've only seen one. In fact, most of the episodes I've only seen once. Whereas even with Voyager, even though Voyager is my least favorite show, like there are episodes of Voyager that I've seen numerous times for various reasons. And Enterprise, that's not the case. And with the new stuff, because Discovery and Picard are so serialized, it might be difficult. But again, with some prompting, I could probably come up with something, you know what I mean? I could probably remember some bit about the episode, remember the trick of the episode, or give you the gist of the plot or something. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at that. I have a decent memory when it comes to Star Trek stuff. At least Star Trek stuff that, fall into the categories that I mentioned already, like TNG and Deep Space Nine and stuff. Jim Baker. Okay, I got one for you. What is the meaning of life? LOL, just kidding, buddy. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Pot was legalized in my state, Cornfield, Illinois, for recreational use almost a year and a half ago. There's a dispensary right down the street from my house. I've smoked pot all my life, and now I get to do so with impunity. It's awesome. My question is it legal in Maryland? Do you smoke? Would you smoke if it is? I must say, as bread and circuses go, this one's my favorite. It is not legal recreationally in Maryland. It is legal for medicinal use in Maryland, and it is decriminalized in Maryland, which means that it is not a felony to, I think it's to possession of less than, what is it? Is it 10 grams? Anyway, possession below a certain amount is decriminalized, and smoking in public is decriminalized, but that doesn't mean it's completely legalized. Decriminalized just means that you won't go to jail for it. You can still be fined for it. It's still illegal. It's just not, it's a misdemeanor, not a felony. But I've never smoked it, and I wouldn't smoke it. And it's not because, if it's your thing and you enjoy smoking pot and it helps you get through the day and it adds joy to your life, more power to you. I think that's great. It's just never been something I have remotely been interested in, other than alcohol, which is the subject of a question coming up. So I don't want to talk about it too much now, but other than alcohol, I have never used any drug recreationally. And I've just never really been interested in it. I've never felt compelled to, it's never remotely been a temptation for me. So, and even something as benign as pot, which I do think is not, it could be and should be legalized across the country. And I don't think there would be any detriment to that. I don't think there's any reason not to. And I certainly don't think people should be going to prison for it. That's absurd. It's not harmful, or at least it's not that harmful. So I have no objection whatsoever. In fact, I support legalizing it and decriminalizing it and all the rest of it. But no, would I smoke it personally? No, I'm just not interested in it. I've had opportunities to, and I've been offered in the past, and I've always passed. I'm just not into it. It's just not my thing. Um, John Burns says, Steve, you don't need to watch this video clip to answer my question. Well, that's good because I didn't watch it, buddy. Unless you like seeing William Shatner act. Aw, maybe I should have watched it. This isn't a bad TOS scene to watch. And then there's the link. Remember the TOS episode, The Omega Glory, because it's funny. If you check Memory Alpha for the Omega Glory episode, it's wrong. I've added the William Shatner quoting the preamble to the Constitution of the United States scene near the end of the episode, but according to Memory Alpha, William's quoting the Pledge of Allegiance. I know many don't like the pledge, but I'm sure far more wouldn't like inaccuracies when it comes to Star Trek. I'd also be curious to know if there are other mistakes there in Memory Alpha. Has anyone noticed other examples of this with Memory Alpha? The scene in question is where William, without using the words pledge or allegiance, quotes the preamble of the Constitution. Yeah, I know that scene from that episode, and yeah, he doesn't quote the Pledge of Allegiance. That would make no sense because the document that they are talking about is the Constitution, not the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, there's no document called the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, if you go to the National Archives of the United States in Washington, D.C., there's, the main display is the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. It's not, and the original Pledge of Allegiance. Like, there is no original Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's not, it's not considered an important document in American history. So yeah, but are there other examples of mistakes on Memory Alpha? I'm sure there are. I don't know of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are. I mean, it's a wiki. It's maintained by people who are fallible, and even obsessive Trekkies get things wrong occasionally. And actually, what you're describing there in that Memory Alpha entry on Omega Glory is such a blatant inaccuracy that I'm frankly shocked that it's survived this long. Like, it's surprising that hasn't been corrected by now, because that is a pretty major mistake in the summary of that episode. So yeah, that kind of surprises me that it has survived. But yeah, I'm sure there are others, but I can't think of any right now. Jacob Monroe, hello, Steve. In your last Ask a Professional YouTuber video, you used what looked like the only beer can in your fridge next to 2 boxes of seltzer. It made me wonder, do you actually drink? I don't not drink. I'm not like a teetotaler, but practically speaking, no, I don't really drink that. And in fact, that can of beer is still in my refrigerator because I didn't actually drink it. It was acting. It was merely acting. I didn't actually drink the beer during the video. So it's back in the fridge. And actually it's a beer that my dad left here. It's a Coors Light. And I'll drink Coors Light. Like, I'm not a snob about it, but it's not the beer that I would go for. If I was buying beer, I would not buy a Coors Light. But no, I haven't bought alcohol of any kind for years. I have always sort of been a social drinker, and if I'm out with friends, and if I'm like staying at a hotel, or if I know I'm going to be out for a while and I'll have time to sober up, or if somebody else is driving or something like that, and other people are drinking, like, I'll have a beer with people, and but generally speaking, I'm not a big drinker, no. And I haven't been for a long time. When I was like younger, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, occasionally I would drink to excess. But even then, like, I mean, occasionally, like a handful of times. Like, it's just not something that I did very often. It's not something that I've ever done very often. So no, I'm not really a super big drinker. But but as I said in response to the pot question, I mean, I've never ever smoked pot or used marijuana in any way. I never had like a brownie or anything. Like, I've never, you know, I've never made use of marijuana in any way. But yeah, I've drank alcohol somewhat, semi frequently throughout my life, but it's never been like a big thing. Like, I'm not much of a drinker. So yeah. Philip K says, "Hey Steve, I recently got some bad news. My girlfriend has tested positive for COVID, and as of the time I'm writing this, I'm waiting to go get a COVID test myself. Could you wish us good luck?" Oh, absolutely, my friend. Speedy recovery to your girlfriend. I hope that her symptoms are mild and she recovers quickly. I hope you test negative for it, but if you test positive for it, I hope you recover quickly and don't experience bad symptoms. I mean, I'm absolutely, I wish you good luck, and I hope things turn out good in a very, very short time. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I've known several people now who have gotten it. Thankfully, I don't know anybody who has died from it, or even anybody who has gotten very, very sick from it. But I have known a few people who have tested positive for it, and a few who have experienced some degree of symptoms as a result of it, but nobody that's gotten seriously ill from it, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And yeah, so yeah, absolutely. Best of luck to you, and best of luck to your girlfriend. Um, Next question is from Relic 5000. Greetings. I really enjoyed your episode about disability in Star Trek. Toward the end, you talked about the DS9 episode Chrysalis. Bashir falls in love with Serena. You talked about how other characters point out how creepy it is, but it's worse than the doctor-patient thing. Throughout the episode, Serena is almost childlike. She clearly doesn't understand what Bashir is doing, only sticking with him out of gratitude. When he starts pushing too hard, he scares her into regressing back to her previous state. My question is, why did the writers of Star Trek keep going to this creepy male character place? They went there multiple times with LaForge in TNG, with Bashir in DS9. What were the writers thinking? I think it's probably a byproduct of the fact that writing staffs on Star Trek shows were predominantly men. There were women writers, Jerry Taylor being the best example of a woman who was not just a writer, but a writer with a great deal of power and influence in the show during the TNG era. But other than her, most of the writers, and especially most of the writers who had a lot of influence over the direction of the show, were men. And those episodes were written from a sympathetic perspective to those male characters. So when Bashir is creeping on Serena and is acting inappropriately toward her as both a doctor and, as you point out, just as a person who has, is enjoying the superior position in a power imbalance in their relationship. That episode is written from Bashir's perspective, and we are meant to sympathize with Bashir. And that's how the writers constructed that story. So the show is smart enough that when Bashir or when Serena does regress, and when she does decide to sort of step back from her relationship with Julian, that is seen like his behavior is shown as a questionable thing. Like, we're not meant to approve of everything he does, and that's good, but we're still meant to sympathize with him. When Serena regresses, we're supposed to be, of course, we're concerned about her, but we're supposed to be first and foremost concerned about Bashir. When they break up, when they turn out to not be when they're not a couple anymore at the end of the episode and she leaves, we're meant to sympathize with Bashir. We're meant to feel bad about Bashir because he's the lonely one. He's the one who has really been harmed in this scenario, according to the writing of this episode, or at least it's implied by the way this episode is written and the way our sympathies are directed by the writing. So I think it's a byproduct of that. Like, even when Bashir's actions are shown to be undesirable, we are still invited to be on his side, and say, "Oh, Julian, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this." But we're still on his side ultimately. And I think the fact that the shows were written mostly by men and were written from a perspective of sympathy for the male characters is the main reason for that. I think that's what the writers were thinking. Next question is from some random geek, also known as some arbitrary dork, who almost forgot to ask a question. That's okay, buddy, because a couple people asked theirs even after yours. So, no, no harm, no foul on that one. Um, my friend Tavi is raising money and awareness for the charity organization AWNN, the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network. It's the end of Autism Acceptance Month, and autistic people are still struggling to get their voices heard because of charities that claim to speak for them while promoting treatments that amount to abuse. AWNN is an autistic led organization that provides community support and resources for autistic women, girls, trans feminine, and trans masculine non binary people, trans people of all genders, two spirit people, and all others of marginalized genders. You can learn more on their website here, awnnetwork.org. They have a micro grant for autistic people of color fund here, which is awnnetwork.org/APOC. Tavi is planning to stream today, if she is not sick, on her Twitch channel here, which is twitch.tv/Tavi underscore the underscore Wolfess, just hoping to raise about $100. She has raised $466.33 already. Plug, please. Absolutely. Consider it done, my friend. And I hope that she's able to raise even more than that. That is fantastic. So, yeah, twitch.tv/Tavi underscore the underscore Wolfus. And I'm sure, I haven't checked the chat, but I'm sure that Some Random Geek has got those addresses in the chat right this very second for anybody who is interested in supporting that that cause, going over and watching that stream and donating during that stream. That would be fantastic. So next question is from Joe McClory, who says, I've been thinking a lot about my feelings of restorative justice in the wake of the guilty verdict on one of George Floyd's murderers. I wonder if you can think of what restorative justice might look like in this case. How might the man who slowly tortured Floyd to death start to make whole Floyd's family and community? Do you think he could ever do enough? That would be up to George Floyd's family and community. I don't know. I think it is possible. It is possible for me to imagine someone who committed a crime like Derek Chauvin's atoning for it that much. I can imagine that. I can imagine him reforming to the extent and doing good works to the extent that the family of the man he murdered and the community of the man he murdered might accept that that was enough. But it would be completely up to them. Would it be possible? Yes. I think a man who has done what Derek Chauvin has done would have to be completely honest with himself, would have to truly accept responsibility, not just legally, but morally, but personally for what he did. He would have to admit to himself, first and foremost, and to others that what he did was wrong, was a crime, was something that he should not have done, was something that he could not have done, did not have to do. It was a product of his recklessness, of his insensitivity, of his inhumanity, of his lack of discipline, of his failure to view George Floyd as a human being, of all sorts of very, very deep, deep flaws in his own character that need to be addressed. If he can do that, if he can put himself to service, and not necessarily service to the family or to the community, because there are many models of restorative justice that operate on the principle that a wrongdoer will not be put in direct contact with his victims or with the family of his victims. That it will be, you do not make recompense directly to the family of the person you murdered. Like it's more like, if you have hurt others, then the restorative justice comes in you being of service to another community, or of service in another way, in a way that will not force the family or the victim to come into contact with you, because that would obviously be, could be incredibly painful for them. But I mean, could he? Yes, I think he could. Will he? Probably not. Especially when it comes to cops, there is a lot of digging in. There's a lot of entrenchment. And someone like Derek Chauvin may be forced to pay for his crime. But will he be forced or even all that strongly encouraged to come to terms with his crime and to actually try to be a better person as a result of it? No. I mean, he could easily find safe haven. There are plenty of people in this country, cops and non-cops alike, who still probably believe very, very strongly that he did absolutely nothing wrong. And he has absolutely nothing to be sorry about. And as long as there are large groups of people who believe that, there will not be nearly as much motivation and pressure on the Derek Chauvins of the world to truly reform and to truly try and make up for what they have done. So, I mean, is it possible? Yes. Do I hope he does that? Sure. Yes, of course. Do I think he will? No, I don't. And I don't think I'm being overly cynical to say that. I think that's the most likely outcome. Unfortunately, like I don't think it's a good thing that that's probably what's going to happen. But I think that's probably what's going to happen. Next question is from Siamak, who says, "Hey, Steve, getting my question in just under the wire. Curious what you thought of Biden's not a State of the Union address. As someone, I think like you, who wanted a more progressive candidate but was pleased with the policies on his campaign site, I was very pleased to see how progressive the agenda he laid out is. Do I think it goes far enough? No. Do I think even this will pass, given a 50-50 Senate? No. But what do you think?" I agree with you. I didn't watch it Wednesday night when he actually gave the speech because I was watching wrestling, because you see where my priorities are. But I have watched the speech on YouTube since. I thought it was a good speech. Yes, it was. I wish it had been more progressive. I agree with everything he said. I just wish he had said more. Like he brought back the $15 minimum wage, which I think was great because he got a lot of shit for sort of allowing that to drop out of the COVID bill earlier this year. And I'm glad that he's not giving up on that. I wish that he was a stronger advocate for universal health care beyond just, patching holes and improving the Affordable Care Act. I wish he was an advocate for Medicare for all, or for some form of universal health care. I wish he would propose raising the minimum wage even more than $15 an hour. I wish he had said more about immigration reform. The bill that he sent to Congress on day one of his term, the immigration bill, is a good bill. It would definitely be an improvement over what we have now, but I wish he would do more. I wish he would have committed to raising the number of refugees that we will accept in the United States, which he said he would do, which he pledged to do and has not done. And I think he deserves to be called out for that and to be pushed on that. I wish he were a supporter of the Green New Deal, which he's not. I mean, the things he did say about climate change were good. I agree with him. I just think he needs to go further. So, yeah, I thought it was a good speech. Is it good enough? No. But is it good? Yes, absolutely. Has he done good things and has he proposed good things and attempted to do good things in the first 100 days? Absolutely he has. Absolutely he has. He's been a good president so far. Has he been good enough? Has he been as good as he needs to be? No. But he has been he's done a good job so far. And the things do I think he's pissing in the wind when he tries to get Republicans on his side? Yes. Absolutely. It's a complete waste of time. There were multiple times during that speech where he was like, bipartisanship, Republicans need to support these measures. And it's like, Joe, you are wasting your breath. They're not going to help you. Like, they're not going to be on your side. They're just not. They're not acting in good faith. And the sooner that we stop pretending that reaching out to Republicans, especially like elected congressional Republicans, is a good use of our time, the better off we'll be. It is a complete waste of time. and all this lofty rhetoric about bipartisanship, and we have to come together and put our differences aside and do what's right for the people. That sounds great. That is completely not the reality that we're dealing with. It is a waste of time. These are not good faith actors. These Republicans in the Senate, in the House, are not good faith actors. They will vote against anything that you propose just because it's a Democrat that supports it. That's just that has been their game plan since 2008. Have we not gotten it yet? So, but yeah, overall, I thought it was a good speech. I thought it was a good speech. Next question is from Dana. Hey, Steve. The Tenacious Unicorn Ranch in rural Colorado was created to give transgender people a place to thrive. They started producing alpaca fiber yarn in 2018 and have been using the proceeds to help struggling trans folks and serve the trans community. You can find them at facebook.com/tenacious unicorn or purchase their yarn at etsy.com/shop/tenacious unicorn. Since I haven't asked a question, and I've got some more characters, what will you be doing to celebrate your birthday? I think you should definitely do something special because, like Tim Curry, the world has been a better place for having had you in it. It's important to honor that, and birthdays are a great opportunity to do so. I love that you compared me favorably to Tim Curry. That's a big compliment. So thank you, Dana. First of all, the Tenacious Unicorn Ranch. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Google them or check them out at facebook.com/tenacious unicorn, because if you don't know about them, yeah, it is a trans people own and operate an alpaca ranch in Colorado. And it sounds like a pretty awesome place. It is a safe haven for trans people. They run a business that benefits trans people and the trans community and trans positive charities. And it's just a really, really awesome place. And it deserves more attention and more support. So yeah, check out the Tenacious Unicorn Ranch. And what am I doing for my birthday? I have no idea. I know that we are doing a Trek Reluctantly that day because my birthday is May 5th, and that's a Wednesday, and we're watching The Storyteller episode of Deep Space Nine that evening. And I have a video going up on Wednesday that it'll be done by then. I'm going to shoot it tomorrow and edit it between then and probably, hopefully it'll be done by Tuesday and I can upload it for Wednesday. And the video will be about Godzilla versus Kong, and then also the original King Kong versus Godzilla, analyzing the fights between King Kong and Godzilla from the perspective of wrestling matches. And that's sort of my birthday gift to myself. I'm doing a video about Godzilla and pro wrestling at the same time. So that's kind of a birthday present I'm giving myself because I finished writing the video today and I'm very pleased with it and I'm really looking forward to making it. And it's just, I love Godzilla. I love wrestling. And I'm going to talk about them both in one video. It's going to be really cool. But as for what I'm doing on Wednesday, anything special? I don't know. Probably not, honestly. I mean, I agree with you that, birthdays are an opportunity to celebrate people and even to celebrate ourselves. And I mean, if the world is a better place for having had me in it, I mean, I'm very, very, very glad that you think so. And I'm glad that other people seem to think so too. So, I mean, I hope that's true. But am I going to do anything special? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I do not, as I think because we go back a ways. I don't really make a big deal about my birthday. I haven't at no point in my adulthood have I ever made a big deal about my birthday. I don't want to say that it means nothing or that it's not important. I mean, I'm very happy that I'm alive. I'm very happy that I was born. I think I've had a good life so far. But am I doing something special? I don't know. I don't know. And last question from a patron is from Radical Bacon, who says, I'm sitting in the park waiting on a ride home. It was a lovely day here, if a bit windy. Did you get outside and enjoy today? No, I did not. I wanted to, but you say it was a bit windy where you are, and you're a little bit south of me, I think. Here it was super windy. We had like a high wind advisory, and there were many times during the day when I was here inside that I could hear the wind like buffeting the side of the house. It was ridiculously windy. So I did not get out today and go for a walk. but it's supposed to be less windy tomorrow, and tomorrow is supposed to have basically the same weather as today. So I am planning on going out tomorrow and going for a nice long walk in the woods at the battlefield and climbing a tree and just really getting out and enjoying the weather. That's so I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I didn't do it today. Tonight after this show is over, I'm probably going to do an hour on my stationary bike to get my exercise in for the day, which I would have gotten if I had gone for a walk. But yeah, I'm going for a walk tomorrow, but no walk today, unfortunately. If not for the wind around here, it would have been a lovely day here too. But this is a little too windy for me, so I didn't do it. But tomorrow. So anyway, that's it for the patron questions, and now I turn my full attention to the live chat, and let's see what sorts of questions you all have for me in the live chat. And of course, I need to refresh the live chat viewer because it can't just make everything easy, can it? Hello, there it is. So let's see who's saying what in the live chat. I see a super chat from John Burns. Thank you, my friend. John Burns says, regarding the murder of George Floyd, some may think Chauvin was right. Some may think he was wrong, but 3 others are on trial, and that might make other police officers pause and ask themselves, 40 to life? I agree with you. I agree with you. Hopefully it does lead to a to some kind of a positive change in the behavior of police. I don't think that this trial by itself uh will cause that much of a change, but I would like to think it would cause some kind of a change. Yeah. 255 AD says, question, whenever someone says Trump 2024, should we respond with, but you guys think he's already had 2 terms? Oh, yes, please, let's do that. Yes, let's please do that. That's a great response. Derek Chauvin says, so happy Labor Day. It was a good and creative video you did. What episode of DS9 contained the Sluggo Cola thing? Oh, man, you're putting me to the test. The Sluggo Cola thing. I don't remember off the top of my head. I remember that plot point, but I don't remember the title of that episode. Yeah, I don't know. You got me. I don't know. Was that a Grand Nagus episode? I can't remember. But and thank you, CMAC. I had some older super chats. Let me see. There was one from Mike Dempsey. Are you hyped for Omega versus Osprey? Not really. I mean, I think it's cool that they're doing. I think it's cool in theory. Profit and Lace. Thank you, Sarah. Profit and Lace was the Sluggo Cola one. Oh God, that's the one where Court gets a sex change. Oh boy. Okay, but yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of Omega and Osprey, I think in theory what they're doing with Omega is cool, like doing sort of the belt collector deal where he's like, he's winning world titles in different companies. Like, that's a nice idea. It's a cool premise, but the whole thing just has not. And I like Kenny Omega. Like, I think he's a good wrestler, and I think and he's done a good job in this sort of heel run that he's done since he won the world title, since he won the AEW world title from Moxley. I think he personally has performed well, but the story overall just has not done much for me. I mean, like he had the exploding death match with Moxley at the last pay-per-view, and I just really didn't like that at all. I'm not really a fan of that kind of wrestling. I didn't really like it before the sort of the dud of an ending where the explosions went off and they weren't that impressive. I just don't like that style of wrestling. I did appreciate that they put some psychology into it with, bouncing into the ropes and setting off the explosives and trying to avoid that. Like it's obvious that they put some thought into it and they wanted it to be a match and not just like a blood and guts thing. But I just don't like that style of wrestling. I just find it really boring. And so Omega's title reign so far has not, and I couldn't give less of a shit about the Impact stuff. I haven't watched Impact Wrestling in years. I don't care. I didn't watch the pay-per-view. I mean, Rich Swann is a great wrestler, but not good enough to get me to watch Impact. I just don't care. It's just not, it just hasn't grabbed me, so, and it's no disrespect to Omega. I just, you know, I was happier when Moxley had. I thought it was a much more interesting company to watch when Moxley had the belt, and not no fault of Omega's, but I just haven't been digging the world title picture of AEW since he won the belt for those reasons. So I'm not really. I don't plan to watch Omega versus Osprey. I'm not that excited about it. And next question is, let me see. Daryl Lett says, I asked this in the chat earlier, but have you ever noticed that Chauvin is the first 7 letters of the word chauvinist? I honestly never noticed that, but holy shit. Another super chat from John Burns who says, Hot Fuzz. Some of the things I liked about that movie could be used for police reform, like how words have power and using them correctly is important. Sure. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine lately. And there are, I like that. I mean, it's not like, the show isn't about critiquing police like at all. It's not remotely that kind of show. And it's not the kind of show that I think, at least not to the point that I've just started season 3. So, or actually, no, I just finished season 3. So, up until that point, it hasn't, I don't know what's coming in the second half of the show, but it hasn't been all that serious about, addressing issues of police reform and stuff like that. But they do at least nod their head in that direction, and they do pay a little bit of lip service. And there are occasionally jokes that are sort of concerned with uh, responsible policing and problems with policing and stuff like that. So, I mean, I appreciate that. I've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine a lot lately, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Um, oh, Sarah, was that your boyfriend who sent in the rant about guns? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I read that question earlier. And as Dana says a little bit further, I basically said, yeah, me too. I thought it was a great question. I agreed with 100% of what he said. That's really cool. I didn't know that's who that was. Radical Bacon. I have not watched Stephanie Sterling's wrestling. No, I have not. 255 AD says Derek Chauvin is being held in 23-hour-a-day isolation right now. How should we feel about that as progressives who normally view that kind of thing as torture? I will put it this way. And it's similar to my opinion about, like, people beating the shit out of Nazis, right? Yes, I think holding someone in solitary confinement like that is not right. I don't think we should do that. As a general rule, as a principle, I oppose that. Am I going to shed a single tear or waste an iota of energy speaking out in defense of Derek Chauvin? No, I am not. Like, in principle, do I believe they should be holding him in isolation for 23 hours a day? In principle, no, I don't. As a rule, I oppose that sort of thing. But in his case, am I going to lose any sleep over it? No, fuck him. I don't care what they do to him. Fuck him. He's a piece of shit. And maybe that's hypocritical. Maybe there's cognitive dissonance there, but I could live with that. Dana asks, I didn't know you had a beer of choice. What is it? At the moment, I don't know if I have one. It used to be Yingling. I used to love Yingling. It's bottled somewhat locally. It's kind of a regional beer. You can't get it everywhere in the country. It's a really nice beer. But the owner of the company is a strident vocal Trump supporter. And as soon as I heard that, I stopped drinking it. And I haven't bought a bottle of it since. I haven't even ordered it at a restaurant. I get something else. So at the moment, I don't have a favorite, and because I don't really drink that much anyway. I mean, it's not like I was in any sort of a rush to go replace it. Like, I can't drink Yingling anymore. I have to find something else. Like, you know, but it used to be Yingling. It used to be Yingling. Throughout the trek, he says, so in Germany, 52 artists just said, hey, we should have a discussion about COVID, but used bad satire to bring their point across. Do you think the lockdown is a good idea or a bad? I mean, I think it's a good idea because there's a pandemic. Like, I'm not sure what you were getting at with that question. It seems like you were cut off there. I mean, do I think it's a good idea as far as a good thing for satire? I guess it depends on the satirist, you know. Oh, Sarah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of your favorite shows. Isn't it a great show? I love that. It has had me cracking up for weeks now. Geraldo Trekkie also asks, do you think the Snyderverse is dead and done for, or do you think it'll rise like one of the Snyder zombies? Well, it depends on what you mean by the Snyderverse. The DCEU will probably go on in some form, even though Warner Brothers seems to be moving away from that sort of shared universe model and are doing more sort of independent projects. I mean, the Flash movie is still taking place and will be in the DCEU. I believe the new Suicide Squad movie is going to be set in the DCEU. And even though Matt Reeves's Batman movie is not in the DCEU, I heard a report that it is eventually going to be folded in as a part of the multiverse thing that they're planning to do at some point. But I mean, the Snyderverse in terms of Zack Snyder personally, like directing movies, no, I think that's probably done. I don't think they're going to bring him back to directing, at least not anytime soon. Um, Super chat from John Burns, who says, I've been watching The Rookie, and in this third season, there's been good talk about communicating with BLM and responsible policing. I enjoy it. Well, good. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it's something that cop shows kind of need to do, you know, like if you want to be a responsible cop show. I mean, I have no problem with cop shows. I watch cop shows. I enjoy cop shows. Some of my favorite TV shows ever are cop shows, but especially now with awareness of police misconduct and systemic racism and all these things at an all-time high, and with them being such urgent issues, I think it's irresponsible to do a cop show and not tackle those issues and not argue vociferously in favor of major police reform at the very least. So I'm glad to hear that they're at least touching on it in The Rookie, which is a show I've never watched. They're out to Trekkie. Who's the best, worst wrestler of each gender? Right now, I think the best male wrestler is Kazuchika Okada in New Japan, and the worst wrestler, I don't know. I'm not sure who the worst wrestler is. I don't know. But the best female wrestler, I've really been liking Hikaru Shida in AEW. I think she's been the women's champion in AEW for a while now. I think she's done a fantastic job. I haven't watched WWE for several years, so I don't know. But the last time I was watching WWE, I was really impressed by Sasha Banks and Asuka. So, I mean, assuming that they are still kicking ass over there, I would assume that they're pretty high on the list as well. Um, And Geraldo Trekkie, no, I've never. Is the Magnum beer actually a real beer? I mean, I know that it's an alt beer, but I think Magnum always used to say he used to order Old Dusseldorf and a long neck, and I always thought that I don't. Was there actually a brand of beer called Old Dusseldorf, or was that just a made up brand for the show? I wasn't aware that that was an actual brand. I know that the kind of beer that it was supposed to be is real. Um, and I think Dusseldorf was like the place of origin of that beer, but I didn't know Old Dusseldorf was like an actual brand. So, but I know, I don't think I've ever had alt beer before. I don't think so. Um, Super chat from Nick Jeffrey. So not Romulan ale then, for shame. No, but my character on the Ensign's log is a big time Romulan ale drinker, or at least used to be before the time jump, and also quite a successful Romulan ale trafficker. Me and Jason had quite a little business. You know what I'm saying? On the side. Another super chat from John Burns who says Chauvin appears to be incarcerated in a federal prison. That's harder time than state prison. Federal maximum security prison. Good. Fuck him. Let him stay there. And another super chat from Mike Dempsey who says, once more into the breach, suit up in your tinfoil hoodies with coke-fed sniffers. Q was right. Okay, I don't know what that means or what that's referring to, but I mean, what is the current narrative with the QAnon nutcases? I haven't been paying any attention. What's the? I heard a thing. Apparently, some of them believe that the military is going to forcibly remove Biden from office. Like, I haven't heard any specifics on why they think that or what their justification is for that. But that's the latest that I heard, that the military is going by the end of this month, which is today. So by the end of the day today. So, according, if we're talking Eastern Standard Time, at some point in the next 4.5 hours, the military is going to remove Joe Biden from office. Jordan Joan P., what do you think of MCU fans who want to bring back Iron Man from the dead? I don't think it's a good idea. I think I'm actually someone who believes that deaths in comic books should mean something. And that, Mike, you meant Q like from Star Trek. Much better Q. Looking forward to seeing Q again. Anyway, no, to Jordan's question, I think comic book deaths ought to mean something. I think if you kill off a comic book character, they should stay dead. I think that death should have gravity and weight. I think Tony's death in the MCU was a big moment, was handled very well, was very effective, was an absolutely wonderful completion of his character arc that began back with his first movie, his first solo movie that initiated the MCU. I thought the whole thing was handled beautifully, and I don't think Tony needs to come back. I don't think there's any narrative necessity to bring him back. I think the MCU will do just fine without him. And I don't know where his character goes if you bring him back. Like, his character arc is done, you know? So, I mean, I understand people wanting him to come back because they like the character and they want to see more adventures of the character. But in terms of the writing, in terms of the storytelling, no, I think it would be, I think personally, it would be a very big mistake to bring him back. Sarah Scott asks, do you play video games, Steve? I've only just started gaming and have been binge playing a Star Trek game called Elite Force and its sequel. Helps me avoid doing any work. I don't really play games. Dana and I talked about this a little bit on Trek Reluctantly this week. But no, I'm not a gamer. I've played games before, but and I've played Elite Force. I think I might have a copy of Elite Force on my computer, but I haven't played it for a real long time. But I've played it. I've played the DOS Star Trek games from the early 90s, Star Trek 25th Anniversary and Star Trek Judgment Rights, are sort of the point and click like Star Trek adventure games. Those were neat. I enjoy those. I have those too. I have those on my computer, but again, I haven't played them for a while. And just in general terms, like non-Star Trek games, I mean, yeah, I have played games in the past. I've owned, the last console I owned was a PS2 that I gave away to a friend after a couple years because I just was done with it. I just was not playing it anymore. But while I had it, I would play like wrestling games and baseball games, played the Resident Evil games, played Grand Theft Auto, stuff like that. But I mean, was never like super into it. You know, so yeah, I've never really thought of myself as a gamer, and now certainly I'm not. Like, it's not a part of my life at all. Um, oh, Devi asks, what media platforms do you recommend for show watching? I mean, it depends on what shows you want to watch. Like, I mean, I subscribe to pretty much everything because I can afford it. But I mean, if I had to narrow it down, I would want to keep Netflix, and I'd want to keep um, Paramount Plus for the Star Trek stuff. And at this point, I'd probably hang on to HBO Max too, because I've been watching that a lot. Disney Plus, Disney Plus is because, I like being able to watch Star Wars. I like being able to watch the MCU stuff in the centralized place. But it depends on what you want to watch. Like, that's, I'm a little saddened that it's diversified so much, that there are so many streaming services now, whereas 5, 6 years ago, there was basically just Netflix and Hulu, and you could see whatever you wanted if you subscribe to both of those. And Amazon Prime was, you have to have Amazon Prime too. But I mean, now it's like there's so many different services and they all have different stuff. And you just kind of have to pick and choose. It depends on what you want to see. Throughout the Trek, he says, add on to the DCEU. I think that they should have gone the Marvel route, introducing the characters in solo movies and then have their characters and then have their characters as their USP. Why is WB struggling? See, I mean, they could have done that, but I kind of think that they should have gone the other way and just started with a Justice League movie. I mean, if they knew, because Marvel did the build up. Marvel did the let's give everybody solo movies first, and then build up to the big team up with the Avengers, right? And that worked. They pulled that off wonderfully. That worked terrific, creatively and commercially, obviously. I think DC should have done the opposite. I think they should have just started with a Justice League movie, introduced new versions of Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern and Flash and the classic lineup of the Justice League, and just started with that movie. And if that was and there's no reason why they couldn't have done that. You don't, I mean, those characters are familiar enough, especially the big three, the Trinity at the center of it, are familiar enough to the public that they don't need to give everybody a solo movie first, so that like nobody's going to be sitting in the theater going, who's this Wonder Woman? I've never heard of her before. Like, we know who she is. Same thing with the Flash, same thing with the Green Lantern. Even, like, we introduce them briefly, let us know like who they are, what their powers are, what their attitude is, what their personality is like, and then just get them into a fun, big action adventure story where they team up and they save the world. Like, no reason why they couldn't have just jumped right into a Justice League movie. And then if it was successful, if people liked it, if it turned out good, then they could branch off and do solo movies from that point. But I think they should have done the opposite of the Marvel model and started with a Justice League movie. Super chat from John Burns, who says there was a Star Trek game called the Kobayashi Alternative. Anybody remember, or just old me? I've heard of it, I think, but I've never played it. And super chat from Debbie. Thank you very much, Debbie, who says, super happy I found your channel this month and I can't stop consuming your media. Your option, comedy, and humor are just refreshing. Question, what storylines do you want to see in new Trek shows? Well, first of all, thank you. Welcome aboard. I'm glad that I can be of some service to you. I try not to approach it that way. I mean, I don't really think of it like that. It's difficult for me to answer questions like, what storylines do you want to see in a new Trek show? Because that's just not the way I interact with it. I'm curious to see, I'm curious to see season 4 of Discovery, just because I have enjoyed Discovery so far and I want to see where it goes. And the little bits and pieces they've dribbled out about what the story of season 4 will be, sort of responding to some kind of galactic natural disaster, seems really interesting. And I'm curious to see where it goes. But I don't really think in terms of like what storylines would I like to see. I'm curious to see where it goes. Like, one of the things I liked about the way the first season of Picard ended was that it was wide open. Like, there were no major dangling threads where you were like, aha, I know what season 2 is going to be about. It was wide open. And I like that. I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, I have some guesses about what's going to happen now because of like leaks from the set and rumors and stuff about what the series is going to be like in season 2. And we know that John Delancey's coming back as Q, and we've known for a while that Whoopi Goldberg is going to be in it as Guinan. So, I mean, I have a general idea of who to expect, and can maybe start to put together a vague idea of what the story is going to be. But I don't know. I would rather be curious about what's going to happen and watch than say, here's what I think they should do. Here's what I think they should do. Here's what I think they should do. Because I just don't like, that's just not the way my brain works, if that makes sense. So I have a hard time answering questions. People ask me that kind of stuff a lot. They say like, what do you think the next season of Discovery should be about? Or what do you think, if you created a new Star Trek show, what do you think it should be about? What kind of, and that's not the way my brain works. So sorry, but thank you very much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for watching my stuff. I'm super happy you found me too. 255 AD says, question, is Romulan ale actually especially dangerous, or is the Federation banning it just like the US banning stuff from Cuba? Yeah, I think it's that second one. It's banned because of the chilly relations between the Federation and Romulus. Dorota Trekkie says, and should the villain of the Justice League movie have been Starro? Absolutely. Yes. Yes. When I saw Starro in the trailer for the Suicide Squad, I laughed out loud and clapped my hands. It was so wonderful to see that they're going to put Starro in a movie. But absolutely Starro should have been the villain of the Justice League movie. I would watch a dozen movies with Starro as the villain before I would watch one movie about fucking Darkseid. I do not care about Darkseid. I've never been remotely interested in those characters. All due respect to Jack Kirby, never been interested in the New Gods, never found them compelling in the least, and I don't think they work as Superman villains at all. I don't care about Superman in space. I care about Superman on Earth. I don't give a shit about, Earth being invaded by minions of Apocalypse. Fucking yawn. I don't care. But Starro, a super intelligent giant starfish, sign me up. That is classic Silver Age goofiness. I really, really wish that the Justice League movie had been about the Justice League fighting Starro. Absolutely. Absolutely. Another super chat from Mike Dempsey. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. 255 AD says, I think individuals punching bigots is fundamentally different to the state subjecting them to institutionalized torture. You know what I mean? Yes, and I agree with you. I agree with you. There is a difference, and I agree with you. But I also stand by what I said, that I don't care what happens to Derek Chauvin. Super chat from John Burns, who says, the U.S. government is banning menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. Do you think that Cuba should flood the market with flavored cigars? I guess there's going to be a business opportunity, right? There's going to be an opening in the market. Yeah, that'd be, I guess commercially it would be the right decision. Pedro Noguera says, I think Justice League's villain should have been Mongol and the plants that give Superman dreams about Krypton. Oh yeah, for the man who has everything. Yeah, yeah. Great premise, great story, like great Superman story. I don't know. I guess you could maybe tease that out to a feature length. But yeah, that's a great story. That's a great story. Yeah, Duralta Trekkie, Snyder would have turned Starro possessed people into zombies. Yeah, Zack Snyder would not be the choice to direct a Starro movie. I think part of my pitch to say Justice League should have been a movie with Starro as the villain is to say, and also Zack Snyder should not have directed it, and probably Chris Terrio should not have written it. Super chat from Mike Dempsey once again. Thank you, my friend, who says, who is the best dart player in Star Trek? I mean, it's obviously Bashir. I mean, it's not fair because of his genetically enhanced reflexes. O'Brien forced him to stand way back on the line. He said, "Okay, from now on, you stand back there, right?" But it's obviously Bashir. It's obvious. I feel like it's almost canonical at this point that Bashir is the best dart player. 255 AD are Darkseid, Thanos, and Apocalypse all basically the same character? Yes. Big scary. I mean, Apocalypse isn't from space, but with Darkseid and Thanos, big scary space guy wants to destroy the Earth or take over the Earth or something. I cannot tell you how dull I find those kinds of villains. One of the most impressive things to me about the MCU is that they actually got me interested in Thanos. Infinity War did such a good job with Thanos, and I mean, obviously, I'm not in the Thanos was right way. Thanos was not right. Thanos did not have a point. Thanos was evil. He was a monster. Um, but as a character, they made me. The MCU movies made me interested in Thanos, and that is a feat because that kind of character is unfathomably boring to me. I just the idea, oh, he's a big scary space guy, he's a titan, or he's an immortal, or he's a god, and he thinks that the earth belongs to him, or he wants to colonize the earth and steal its resources, or he wants to steal the anti-life equation that's been carved into the surface of the earth, or whatever bullshit that they came up with for that Zack Snyder version of Justice League. I could not care less about any of that. It is so boring. I don't care. But the MCU actually eventually, I mean, when they were still teasing Thanos, and it was like, they had like the post credit scene where he grabbed the Infinity Gauntlet and he was like, well, I guess I have to do it myself. Like, I didn't give a shit about that. But when Thanos actually became a major character in the movie, um, they actually got me to care about that character, and that was impressive because generally speaking, yeah, I'm not I honestly, I know there are a lot of Dark Side fans. I could not give less of a shit about Dark Side. I don't think he's an interesting character. I admit I haven't read much of him in the comics, but like in the movies, in the animated series, the various versions of DC animated stuff where Darkseid has been like the big bad, I cannot tell you how little I care about Darkseid and how deeply uninteresting I find him. I just don't care. I would much rather watch Superman fight Lex Luthor than watch Superman fight Darkseid. I just don't care. Um, Pedro Nagira says Justice League should have Snyder as a villain. It does. He's not in it, but he's totally the villain of the movie. Let's see what else we have here. Super chat from John Burns. Character in Picard you're least interested in? I don't know if they are even going to be in the show in season 2, but in season 1 it was the Romulan incest twins, and I can't I can't was one of them was I can't even remember their names. The Romulan incest twins. Was Narek one? Was Narek the guy? And I can't remember what the sister's name was, but yeah, the Romulan incest twins. As far as the regular cast that is returning, I mean, I pretty much like all of them. Like I don't find any of them to be particularly uninteresting. I think they all at least have potential. But as far as like all of the characters in season 1, it was the Romulan incest twins. I never gave a shit about anything they were doing. Orange Man, was there ever a post-credit scene you cared about? The Howard the Duck scene at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy made me laugh. The post-credit scene in the most recent Spider-Man movie, the post-credit scene at the end of Far From Home, was awesome. I really enjoyed that. There have been post-credit scenes that I've liked. I don't have anything against post-credit scenes, generally speaking. Another super chat from Mike Dempsey who says, how do you feel about Falcon as Cap? His speech was great. Spoiler warning for Falcon and Winter Soldier. WandaVision was great too. I loved the ending of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think Sam as Cap is awesome. I love the costume. I loved his speech. I loved the way they approached it, the way they dealt with sort of the emotional and political ramifications of a black man assuming the mantle of Captain America. I thought the whole thing was terrific, and I think Sam and also Anthony Mackie as playing Sam make a great Captain America. Dana, I'm positive. Dana, I'm looking right at you. I'm positive. I don't care about Darkseid. I'm absolutely sure. I'm absolutely sure. Radical Bacon. Yes, I would. Of course, I would welcome Will Wheaton back on Picard. I would love to see Wesley again, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Um, Duralta Trekkie says, I have a problem with the Nolan voice in the with the Batman voice in the Nolan flicks. And with this, we need to ground this in realism. I notice plot holes if I take movies seriously. You too? Yeah, there are plot holes in the Nolan Batman movies for sure, but particularly with the Dark Knight, the movie is good enough that while I'm watching it, I don't care. You know, it doesn't. They don't bother me. But yeah, I think the problem with the Batman voice, I think Christian Bale's Batman voice is fine. He kind of has different levels for it. Like when he's just talking to Commissioner Gordon, he doesn't go over the top with it. He just kind of talks like this. But when he's talking to bad guys out on the street, when he's like interrogating, you know, Sal Maroni to find out where the Joker is, and he's like, "Where is he?" You know, that's kind of over the top. He's sort of doing like an Ultimate Warrior promo voice there. Where is he? He must have friends. You know, it's a little over the top, but he only does that when he's like completely in character as Batman. What I find silly is when he talks in the Batman voice, when he is alone with people who know that he's really Bruce Wayne. Like there are a couple of scenes in The Dark Knight. I think there's one scene in the dark. It's the scene with when he shows Lucius the the machine that he's built to tap people's cell phones, and it's just him and Lucius, and he's in costume as Batman because he's getting ready to go out and look for the Joker. But Lucius knows that he's Bruce Wayne, and he's talking to Lucius in the room, and it's just the two of them, and he's talking to Lucius in the Batman voice. And it's like, and it doesn't take me out of the movie. It's not a big problem. But when I think about it, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, if part of the ethos of these films is we're going to do this quote unquote realistically, whatever that means for a Batman movie, and you've got him talking in the Batman voice alone to a dude who knows that he's Bruce Wayne, like, come on. Come on. You know, so no, it's not a big deal, but it is the kind of thing that I do notice, and I kind of snicker at it. It's not like, you know, it doesn't ruin anything for me, but I'm kind of like, okay, that's goofy. Like you've said before, like, you know, you're trying to make a point of not making it goofy, but you're still making it goofy, and that's okay because Batman is inherently goofy. Even if you tell a serious Batman story that you want people to invest in and care about, it's still goofy, you know. Pedro, no, I don't give a shit about Granny Goodness either. All of the cosmic stuff, all of the New God stuff. It's just a yawn for me. I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care. Mike Dempsey asks, will the Orville make an appearance in Picard? How meta would that be? Pretty meta. Yeah, I would say pretty meta. I wouldn't look for it unless it's like one of those hidden cameos, like when they worked like R2-D2 and the Millennium Falcon into the Borg battle in First Contact. It's just like they're that big, but if you look closely at the right time, you can see them. John Burns with another super chat says, were the Romulan incest twins based on the twin superheroes, the brother who took the fatal bullet, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, or Game of Thrones? Maybe. I don't know. Or you know, I have I've completely forgotten the reference I wanted to make. Yes, VC Andrews. They were based on they were VC Andrews characters. I had to Google it to remember that I wanted to make a Flowers in the Attic reference. But that was like my go-to joke for the Romulan incest twins. They were the VC Andrews twins. Actually, no, that's not. I don't think that's even mine. I think a reviewer from the AV Club dubbed them the VC Andrews twins, and perfect, so perfect. Mac, yeah, it would have been great if Lucius had called him out on that. If Lucius had been like, "Why are you talking like that? I know you're Batman. I know you're Bruce Wayne. Just talk to me normal, dude. Come on. Just talk to me like a person, please." That would have been great. Would have kind of, you know, broken the mood of the movie, maybe killed the momentum at that point, but, you know, might have been fun. Durata Trekkie, that's a good question. How did Clark die? The world knows how Soups died, killed by Doomsday, but how did Clark die? What's the story? They never addressed it. I have no idea. Dana, I have not read Flowers in the Attic. And I don't think I've seen the movie either. I just know like the premise of it. I know the gist of it. But no, I've never read it, and I don't think I've seen the movie either. 55 AD says, how do you feel about banning flavored cigarettes? It really bugs me that some progressives like carve out an exception for tobacco when they argue for drug legalization. Well, tobacco is I don't have a problem with banning tobacco. It kills. It's an addictive substance that kills people. Like it. I wouldn't care if they banned. Fuck banning flavored cigarettes. I think they should ban all cigarettes. I think they should ban all tobacco. It's poison. It kills people. It's addictive. I have no problem with that. I think that's a different kind of thing. If you're talking about something like marijuana that is not nearly so harmful, I don't have a problem with that. And even if you banned tobacco, like I don't think people should go to prison for having it. I mean, it shouldn't be criminalized in that way. But should people be allowed to sell it? No, it's like, no. I think tobacco companies should be legislated out of business. You know. Another super chat from John Burns, who says, I wasn't going to watch Wonder Woman 84 until I saw Nostalgia Critic's review. No glossing over the Wonder Woman felonies, but Doug Walker makes it sound like a fun ride. Okay, well, bless you for watching Nostalgia Critic videos. Oh, Dana, I'm pretty sure the Flowers in the Attic movie is more than 10 years old. Yes. And by the way, the bless you for John Burns was sarcastic. I would never recommend anybody to watch Nostalgia Critic videos ever for any reason. I think the Nostalgia Critic is a piece of shit and a terrible movie critic. But if you enjoy him, vaya con Dios. Anyway, no, yeah, I could pitch it to Jason, but I don't think it falls under our criteria. Now, I could choose it for my birthday movie next year, but I'm probably not gonna. 255 AD. I think opioids should be used for like medicinal purposes, but I'm not comfortable legalizing like completely legalizing opiate. Like again, I don't think it should be criminal. I don't think like if you're caught like using heroin or illegally using, OxyContin or something, that you should be sent to prison. I don't think it should be criminal in that sense, but I don't think it should be completely legal. I don't think people should just be allowed to, to sell heroin. Like, no. And Mike Dempsey, have I ever heard of Ladybeard? And I don't think so. Anyway, Deralta Trekkie says, the plot hole I noticed in the Snyder cut is the plot hole that I didn't care in the Whedon cut. Plot hole, how do we explain that Clark is back? I mean, they buried him. Yeah, it's the same thing with like, how did he die? Like, how do you explain that he came back? I think in the comics, when they did the death of Superman in the comics, they kind of wallpapered over it by saying that, oh, Clark was never actually, because not that much time had passed. So they said like, oh, he was buried under the rubble of Metropolis after Doomsday's attack, and he was pulled from the rubble, miraculously still alive. And I think because back then Supergirl was a shapeshifter. It was the Susan Danvers version of Supergirl, and she was a shapeshifter, and so she shapeshifted into Clark Kent so that they could have Clark Kent and Superman like together at the same time to throw people off the scent so they wouldn't know that it was the same guy, and to sort of establish that Clark had been pulled from the rubble and was alive. But yeah, they didn't do anything like that with the Justice League movie. 255 AD. It's not. I mean, I kind of just. It's what I say. It's what I said before. I don't think it should be criminal. I don't think people should go to prison, but I don't think we should just have the kind of society where we're just sort of where it's like, yeah, do as much heroin as you want. Like, I just don't think that's a good thing. Now, would it be better if it was if the exploitation was no longer there? I mean, yeah, but like, you know, I'm just not okay with that. I don't think that's a good thing. Um, Devi with a super chat says Batman voice okay, Superman glasses was confusing. Well, I mean, Superman, like, Clark wears glasses, and that's how people know that he's. That's how people don't know that he's Superman. It's his perfect disguise. I mean, I don't. I've never really had a problem with that. It's just like it's a silly comic book thing that we sort of accept. Um, Super chat from John Burns. Thank you once again. Who says there's a lot of terrible reviewers on YouTube, not simply NC. On the other hand, there's Ryan George, who does pitch meetings of movie as a screenwriter and the head of a movie studio. No, I do agree. I do like Ryan George's stuff a lot. I think the pitch meetings are very repetitive. It's basically the same thing every time, but it's a really, really sturdy formula. Like, they do make me laugh. The back and forth between the two versions of him as the studio guy and the writer, and a lot of the jokes about the specific movies are really sharp. Yeah, I like Ryan George's stuff a lot. And yeah, Mike Dempsey says, a pity we missed out on the 5 forms of Superman, right? I mean, I don't necessarily like, I don't think the death and return of Superman was such a strong story that we need to see it in film form. I mean, it might be kind of cool if they could pull it off and do it well to see that in a movie, but like, I don't think that story just on its own merit is really worth telling. It was a neat stunt. It was a cool, like, stunt in the comics in 93, I think, when they did that. But it's not like that great of a story. And the reign of the Superman was like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat, you know. But it's not something that I'm like dying to see on screen. But would it have potentially been better than like the way they handled it in the movies? Yeah, of course. Um, 35 AD says, "What about bodily autonomy?" Well, that's why I don't think people should be sent to prison for it. Like, I don't think you should be criminally punished for it. But I think there has to be some kind of medium between, like, completely just letting people do whatever, highly addictive, illegal, or dangerous, harmful, poisonous drugs that they want, and sending everybody to prison who doesn't. There has to be some kind of medium between that. Yeah, I don't think they should be. I don't think people should be sent to prison for drug related offenses like that. But at the same time, I don't think we should just say, yeah, fuck it, legalize everything. You know. Um, oh, Devi, interesting. It is stated that Clark Kent died in the crossfire between Trinity and Doomsday. I didn't catch that. Okay. Um, yes, so, Nick, some of the honest trailers are funny too. I agree. I dig some of the honest trailers. Draw to Trekkie says, "What is the best non-fiction show you can recommend?" Oh, geez. I'm drawing a blank. If anybody in the chat wants to throw something in, be my guest. Um, Mike, we did get Shaq as Steel. Yes, we did get Shaq as Steel. We sure did. John Burns with a super chat says, who would be your perfect cast for the Secret Six up against Spider-Man? Rhino, Vulture. Man, I can't answer that question. I have no idea. I thank you for the super chat, but I don't know. I can't answer that question off the top of my head like that. I mean, Michael Keaton's already the Vulture, so keep him. And I know they want to bring back. They're talking about bringing back Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina as Electro and Doc Ock, respectively. So we can go with them. But as for the others, I don't know. I don't know. Um, Yeah, I agree. It is. It's one thing to not encourage use, and another thing to ban it. Okay, but I mean, whichever would work best. But I mean, I have absolutely no issue with banning it. Like, I'm not. You know, I have absolutely no issue whatsoever with banning it. Um, but I mean, I do kind of agree with what Garrett says. Like, there does need to be a cultural. You can't just ban it and expect people not to use it. There does have to be a cultural shift, but that doesn't mean that I'm completely opposed to banning it. You know, I'm not like I don't have any sort of squishy feelings about that. Like, you know, um, okay, let me get a couple more questions. Then I'm going to call these proceeding. I'm going to call these festivities to a close because it is almost 8 o'clock here. I've been going for almost 2 hours. Um, John Burns with another super chat says there's a guy named Mike Vaughn. He's got a YouTube channel called On My Mind Entertainment. He does reaction videos for honest trailers versus pitch meetings and sometimes how it should have ended clips. Oh, okay, so it's a channel about where you watch a guy watch other people's YouTube videos. Like, is that not the definition of the snake eating itself? um Oh, hi, Jamie. Just in time for the end of the show. Sorry. All right, I'm gonna wrap up the show. I want to thank everybody for, especially for the super chats. Thank you all for being so generous. Thank you all for the great questions and great topics of discussion. Um, don't forget, as some random geek just reminded me, to check out Tavi's Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Tavi underscore the underscore Wolfess. Tavi's over there raising money right now. And there it is in the chat. Some random geek throws it up in the chat. So please head over there and donate to support that stream. And also don't forget the charity links that are linked in the description of the video, charitylinks.page, which some random geek created for us. You can go and check out some fundraisers and legal defense funds and stuff like that from people who need a helping hand, deserve some support. And if you are feeling generous and you have a few spare bucks in your pocket and you want to do something good with it, click on the charity links and go through that Google Doc and see if there's anybody there who catches your eye, who you would like to support. And I would really appreciate it. So would some random geek, and so would the person that would be the beneficiary of your generosity. Also, don't forget that in addition to YouTube stuff, I co-host a couple of podcasts. They're part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. Late Seating, the movie review podcast that I co-host with Jason Harding. Our most recent episode of that went up last week, and it was our review of The Sandlot. Um, if you like The Sandlot, which a lot of people do, you might not enjoy our episode because we both give it a really, really harsh review, and I tear into it. I think, especially roughly and deservedly so. I give it a very, very negative review. Um, and I'm completely comfortable with that because I was really proud of the review I gave The Sandlot because I think it's a bad movie and I go into a lot of detail about why I think it's a bad movie. And also, of course, the Ensign's Log, which I am on with Jason and our very own Dana Cole. We are now sort of equal co-hosts in season 4, where the three of us play low-ranking officers serving aboard a certain famous Federation starship as it begins its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds and to go where no one has gone before. And the captain is a bald guy, and the first officer doesn't have a beard yet, but he will in about a year. You see where I'm going with this. The new episode of the Ensign Log went up today, and it is a good one. So, I mean, I think I'm biased. I think they're all good ones, but this one is an especially fun one. So you can listen to Late Seating and the Ensign's Log and all the wonderful Let Me Listen podcasts at letmelistenpodcasts.com. And also the links are in the description if you want to check out the podcast, which I highly recommend that you do. And also don't forget that I am able to do this because of support from my Patreon patrons. So if you enjoy what I do on YouTube and you want to help me out and allow me to continue to do this, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and become a patron for as little as $1 a month. $5 a month or more gets you a shout out at the end of a Trek Actually video, but any pledge from $1 on up allows you to submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away streams. And of course, as you see, I answer patron questions first before I turn to the live chat. You can also vote in the polls to choose upcoming Trek Actually topics. And you support this channel and support my work, which I really, really appreciate. I could not do this without the support of my Patreon patrons. So if what I do means something to you and you can afford it, please consider becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Steve Shives. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I will be back next week with Dana on Wednesday to do another Trek Reluctantly. We'll be watching Deep Space Nine, episode 13 from season 1, which is The Storyteller. And then on Friday, a week from tonight, Dana and I will be back to do another stream together where we will begin the next Readaway series, where we will be talking about The Other Wes Moore. That is the book that we are starting. A week from tonight, it will be talking about the introduction and chapter 1 of The Other Wes Moore. So if you haven't got the book yet and you want to follow along with us and read along with us and talk with us in the live chat about it, The Other Wes Moore is the book you need to get, and you need to have intro and chapter 1 read by a week from today. So really looking forward to that. That's it, everybody. Thank you all so much. Happy Labor Day to most of the world, which is tomorrow. It's not in this country, but in most of the rest of the world, tomorrow is Labor Day, also known as International Workers' Day. So happy Labor Day to everybody, and hope everybody has a good night and a good weekend, and I will see you later. Take care, and thanks for watching, folks. Bye.